welcome to Pill Diaries. I'm Craig. This is more for Americans here, but I wanted to kind of demonstrate how fake the political situation is in the USA, how it's all kind of scripted, how you're all living in some kind of scripted reality. Because if you look at what happened last election, now Trump, who's the current president, actually speaks about this. He mentions what the DNC did to Bernie Sanders. He doesn't, I suppose when it was happening, he spoke about how the GOP had tried to oust him because they didn't want him. He wasn't their guy, you know. I mean, he's our guy, you know. Who knows if he's become that since? Who knows if they've fed him scopolamine or, you know, to make him, become susceptible to any command given to him, like it seemed like happened to Barack Obama. You may have noticed that Barack sometimes was very focused when he used to give his speeches, and in other times he would look like he was on something. All right, a theory that my mother has is that because she's quite onto it in some ways, is that there's a possibility that they give them scopolamine, which makes them do whatever it is you tell them, suggestible to anything you say, right? Which would make sense why he would flip-flop between things, say that he doesn't, you know, he's anti-war and then increase the war efforts in Syria. So to get back to what's going on today, in 2016, when the DNC was blatantly committing election fraud against the population, which I suppose is tantamount to treason, against the will of the people, using superdelegates to squash the democratic vote of people, having a pathetic system where they have to go yay and nay, and it was quite clear that in a few of them, I think Arizona was one of them, where they had to call out yays and nays, and it was the sound was deafening for Bernie Sanders, and yet they said, oh, okay, Hillary Clinton, yay, and the woman actually cheered like a child. When I say like a child, Nancy Pelosi, when she ripped up Donald Trump's speech yesterday or the day before, that was childish as well. You're dealing with spoilt little princess syndrome who end up getting their way into politics and the upper end of politics, or elevated through the ranks, not because they're gifted or talented, but because they have a vagina. And you get this as well with minorities and things sometimes. So what ends up happening is you miss out with minorities who know what the hell they're doing, because of you end up shaming those minorities that know what they're doing, as a woman I used to work with in Michigan told me a few years ago when I was working over there, because those that know what they're doing end up getting made look stupid, because the average person, let's say often in IT, you get women who are hired because they've got a vagina, and it makes the women that know what they're doing look stupid, because if 9 out of 10 are hired, or let's say half of them even are hired just because they have a vagina, what ends up happening is you get so used to saying, oh God, every woman I work with is just, it's so, you end up prejudging people unfairly, because you're just so used to coming across those that don't know what the hell they're doing, and just waste your time if you've got a busy job and stuff like that. So what happened today, the other day, was they brought out a phone app. Everyone votes. It's quite clear that Buttigieg is, Pete Buttigieg is nowhere near as popular as Bernie Sanders, or even what's his face, Joe Biden. And I would actually argue not even as popular as Yang or Tulsi Gabbard, but they have been suppressed quite successfully, in the same way that they suppressed the quite obvious support for Bernie Sanders, who had massive rallies, 65,000 people, where Hillary Clinton had nothing close to it at the time. History's repeating again, because he was 2 points under Buttigieg. There's no way that guy has got a more popular vote. The other thing is to show the insanity of the system, to show how the DNC, they don't just want to block Sanders from winning, which exposes the fact that the whole thing's a puppet show, because what they really want to do is they want to make Trump win. Even though Trump's not really an insider either, he serves more of the insider agenda than let's say Bernie Sanders or Tulsi Gabbard or Andrew Yang would. So the only thing is block all three of them. You can't you can't get away with the excuse now that there's a candidate more popular than Bernie, because it's just there's not. Even though I personally don't think he should be running. I think he's really stupid to be running. He should have actually thrown his weight behind Tulsi Gabbard, because he doesn't have the spine to go against the system. I'm still on the fence whether both Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump are actually true outsiders, or if they're just kind of semi-maverick. You know what I mean? Waiting for some other reason. Like Elizabeth Warren appeared to be kind of maverick a few years ago, but she's obviously bought now. There's no way that woman's not completely bought by the financial sector, right? Not the financial sector, sorry, the possibly military-industrial complex. So it depends which lobbyists pay for these people to lose all their scruples and all their values and any morals they may have had. She's just a blatant liar, though. Again, she's probably someone who's got there not through her ability, but possibly just because she fits certain demographics. As we already know, she lied about being a minority. Great running water, or whatever you call her, and her fake Indian name that doesn't exist, right? So if you look at the strategy, I work as a strategist, right? So I know strategy very well, and that's when I look at things, I always look at, if someone was employing a strategy, what would it be here? And in this case, the strategy is they do not have a candidate who could possibly beat Trump, who's an insider. So what they want is their bosses, who are the number one boss they have is the military-industrial complex. So their bosses are going to say, well, look, Trump's not doing what we want, but we can probably top off him. If you see what happened in Iran a while ago, I think Trump was given bad information to effectively ruin his position with a lot of his base who don't want wars. He actually campaigned to get out of wars. So I think they set him up a bit. They failed. I don't trust that sneaky prick Mike Pence, and I really believe if they can't oust him out in some way of trickery, what they're going to do is they're going to basically, they may even possibly assassinate him, because it's not beyond them. They've done it before. They just get their goons to go in there and take him out, right? And then what you get is one of the neocons they wanted in the first place. This is why it's quite strange to me that Trump chose Pence, a known neocon, and people like John Bolton as well, who's obviously a neocon warmonger as well. To be in his administration. It's just quite strange. Maybe he's lacking people. Maybe he just needed people with insider knowledge who know how things work. I'm not really sure, but I think they're a danger to him, because it's quite clear that he's not completely against the people's will. He is kind of for the people. He actually may be fully for the people in his own way, and he's definitely a patriot. So I wouldn't say I'm apolitical anyway. I don't believe in any politics. I think it's all a sham. We don't need them. They're all parasites. But the fact that this paradigm does exist, this parasitic paradigm that steals off everybody, you look at how it's run. So they blatantly rigged the last one. The GOP tried to commit fraud, but they're just not very good at rigging elections compared to the DNC, who are tried and proven for centuries, really, at manipulating the voters. Making it seem like the right are the ones who are anti-black, for example, when they're the ones who have the biggest links to the KKK. Just one example of there's very, very many. They're not the ones who stopped slavery, for example. There's another one. So you ask yourself, why put forward a guy who's openly gay? I got no problem with that. But if you look at American demographics, on both the left and right, there are people who are Russia haters, there are people who are Middle East haters, people who are Africa haters, China haters, all these sort of things. Now, I think this sentiment would be more popular within men on both sides. No matter how woke your country becomes, there's going to be people who would say you can't have a gay guy in that position. And we've already seen that this morning reported on, I think it was The Hill. No, it wasn't. It was the Young Turks. And of course, the lady who presents that, Anna, she's all outraged, you know what I mean? There's no point being outraged at reality. You don't have to mind something yourself, but to ignore the reality that people out there do mind. So let's say you've only got the left to work with 50% of the voter base, at very most, because you've got independents as well. You've only got the left to work with, and then within that left, how many people out there would be homophobic? There's going to be quite a lot. How many people aren't really homophobic, but wouldn't even vote for a woman? And I've met women before that wouldn't vote for Hillary Clinton because she's a woman and don't think a woman should be in the White House. That's just an example of that. Think of all the people who are so anti-Russia and anti-Putin conspiracy theorists that they would push they would actually be worried about, oh, I don't want them making fun of us, going, ha ha ha, look, even their president is gay. So just for those reasons, there's no possible way that Buttigieg, whatever he's, there's another thing. There's a channel called Quantum of Conscience by a guy called Matt, who's based in, I think, Philadelphia. I think he used to be in Texas, I'm not sure. He had a channel called Texas Shrugged years ago. Very good channel for those who like to see alternative descriptions of what it is we're actually living in here. You know, why things seem so scripted, why evil seems to get its way, while every time there's an agenda for true good, it seems to get hindered at every step of the way. So if you look at it, let's just look at, there's all sorts of things like numerology, certain things, come up with certain numbers all the time. It's just pretty strange. And this sounds like the conspiracy theory rabbit hole. But, you know, when you actually start to take notice of these things, so for example, a gay guy whose name is effectively, you could wordplay it to butt judge. You know what I mean? You can't make this shit up. That's just one thing I noticed. Putting a gay guy forward who, when I say putting him forward, manipulating and committing fraud by the use of, here it gets worse, by the use of an app that's created by a company called, of all things, in government and in politics, the company's called Shadow. Now, that's the point where if you imagine that you're being played a trick on, you know, let's say someone's scamming you, and the scammer, instead of just committing the scam, he actually starts dropping heavy hints that he's ripping you off and that you're a sucker. That's what they're actually doing here. Look, it's Shadow. Oh, the system didn't work. Now, how could you make an app that you've actually already tested and that's had hundreds of thousands put into it, including by him, you know, $40,000 twice, I think he donated to this company, which is strange in itself. You know, I'm involved in a few companies, but one of them, you know, you're trying to raise funding. It's not the easiest thing to do, and we've got, you know, a mobile app that does encrypted messaging, three-layer encrypted messaging, way more secure than WhatsApp, and a cryptocurrency exchange, and a voice recognition system that basically turns things into text. You know, and we struggle to get funding. How do these idiots come along and make an app that doesn't even work, and they've tested it, and all it's doing is counting votes? How simple an app can you get? Because I could understand in the back end the database aspects of it. It'd be pretty hard. You'd have to be a pretty incompetent coder to make something like that not work properly, especially the fact that you go through a testing process. That means it was working. There's no look, I've been in IT for about 25 years. There is absolutely no way that you have launched something like that and it doesn't work. What happened was they didn't like the result, so they crashed it on purpose. And then they manipulated the results later on. We already know the last election, just like the election and referendum in Scotland years ago, when they rigged that referendum, they destroyed the results, because they do this on purpose, so you cannot go back and do any data forensics on it. It's all on purpose, okay? Same as why they destroyed all the moon landing tapes. I'm not saying they didn't land on the moon. I'm saying that when they landed on the moon, they didn't land on the moon then. And all you have to do is look at depression, the sheer disappointment on Buzz Aldrin and Buzz Aldrin's face. Go back and look at it, have a look at their faces and see how miserable they are. Not just shattered, not tired, miserable, right? No matter how tired you are, you see guys coming from around the world rowing trip, and they look more excited than those guys did coming back from apparently the moon, right? they just look like someone had deflated their blow-up doll. I don't know, you know what I mean? So that was that's the thing. You don't have to look at the obvious signals and the things that you can argue about, like crosshair and photographs. So I don't want to go too far down that side of things, but I'm just saying that when things are faked, don't look at the obvious, look around and see all the different factors, and they all point to fakeness. They all point to something is rotten in Denmark. By the way, I'd say the same thing happened with the Yuri Gagarin's trip around the Earth when the Russians won the space race. This before the Americans redefined the space race as landing on the moon for some reason. That somehow Americans thought, no, we won it because we landed on the moon. Programmed propaganda, right? Their produced video was released before the produced video of the moon landing. Simple as that. I don't know if they've been there ever since. They probably have. I don't know if the flat Earth is right. You can't even go to the moon. It's not possible, or it's made of plasma, or whatever it is. I don't even want to go down those rabbit holes. I'm just saying that, given the evidence that we can see in front of our face, it was most likely fake at the time, right? And given the evidence we saw in 2016. There's no shadow of doubt in any way that the 2016 election was totally rigged as far as the primaries are concerned. There's no doubt the GOP tried to commit fraud, election fraud, or basically skullduggery. Maybe not. I wouldn't go so far as to say election fraud like the DNC blatantly committed with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, but I would definitely say that it was a contrived result. To get Hillary Clinton, and that's why she lost. To blame everyone for being sexist, well, she got the popular vote, so she can't even make that excuse. To say that the system's not fair, well, Trump said to her that the system's rigged, people, the system is rigged, and she was laughing at him in the kind of insane way that she laughs, and basically scoffed and made a mockery of him, and then when she lost, tried to say the system's rigged, which you know what I mean? Crazy stuff. We see crazy stuff from Hillary again and again and again. She just won't stop. She talks about divisiveness, even though Sanders helped her get a lot of the people she got to win that majority in the first place. Even though many Sanders voters definitely would have voted for Trump, because that's how I felt at the time. I thought they're not going to, like the Rage Against the Machine says, we're not going to do what they tell you, you know. So, getting back to this year's one. It's off to a fully rigged start, where butt judge is. I'm not freaked out by gays or anything, and I'm just pointing out it just seems a little bit scripted and strange that you would have the situation that they know is an unwinnable situation, as well as these little. It's almost like a joke being laid out. The company's called Shadow, and his name's basically Butt Judge. Give me a break. So I would say just more proof along the smorgasbord of evidence that there always is that the whole system's rigged. The whole thing is a script. We are taking part in it, and we should simply, like Scotland, should overthrow the tyrannical government that controls it, because Scotland never became a country. The UK never became a country. It's always been a union, and it's never been declared to take away Scottish sovereignty, yet they allow it, right? The same thing is Americans should not allow the situation that's happening. They should simply demand better. And of course, the guys on the right don't have to worry about that, because the rigging hasn't happened yet, and the assassination attempts of Trump haven't happened yet. Well, I think they will. The impeachment has happened. I do believe that the neocons and neoliberals are on the same side, because they're both paid by the same people. They're both puppets of the same permanent government. You saw that when Trump came against the FBI. How vigorously they defend the FBI, even though they've been caught time and time again, just like the CIA, for being corrupt and being a law unto themselves, that really think they can stomp on the democratic rights of people. Because when it really comes down to it, they don't care about the Constitution, and they sure as shit don't care about democracy. And as far as the primaries are concerned, well, having superdelegates, that just shows that there's no concern for democracy there, because it even starts out being undemocratic. We put up with it, we accept it, we move on, But Bernie Sanders, now there's another story I got to get into. So this guy, he last time he said nothing. So I really believe that Bernie Sanders used to be a maverick, and he could have probably been a good guy. But he's either got to, when he came on stage a few years ago with a mark on his face, it was quite clear he'd been beaten up. I think that's the point where he started changing his tune, advocating for Hillary Clinton, which we already know. The Clinton campaign has well, let's not say they've killed many people, but almost everyone who's come against him to give evidence in any shape or form has ended up dead. There's no smoke without fire. You or I would go to jail when there's circumstantial evidence so strong as what they have, yet we're meant to be called conspiracy theorists by even coming up with, by even suggesting such things. But this massive convenience, the last one of course being, what's his face, Jeffrey Epstein, who clearly didn't kill himself. His injuries are as obvious as 3 gunshots to the back of the head in committing suicide. It's just insane. So Bernie Sanders, the fact that he never ever returned the favor of loyalty from Tulsi Gabbard shows he is definitely part insider. Maybe not fully, but he's definitely part. The fact that Liz Warren betrayed him and then blatantly lied and called him a sexist shows that she is a complete insider and she cannot be trusted whatsoever. And she's also a blatant compulsive liar, right? So you look at the rest of them, they've tried to, they still don't want Bernie in there, but that could just be a show. Oh, we don't want communism, because he's not a communist, but they're going to call it socialism, communism, they're going to call social democracy. They're going to always skip it too forward to be communism, because that's how propaganda works, seeding your head with ideas so that you have a negative view of someone. Now, he hasn't stood up for himself again and again. That's why I call him Spineless Sanders. I put about $3,500 into his campaign a few years ago, and about $500 a month. I was making good money at the time, I didn't care. And campaigned quite a lot for him, until I found out the Act Blue were stealing. The campaign was basically run by Hillary's crowd instead of run by the party, or the party was being run by Hillary's crowd for her to give her money, to funnel all the money into her campaign. Even if you didn't choose to fund her, your money went there. So I stopped straight away. And she has the audacity to say all these things about Bernie Sanders. So I'm still on the fence of whether he's actually an insider, partway insider, or just threatened to be, and he just wants to get in that position so he can change things. But if that was the case, he would stand up for himself more. Even now, in the 2020, here he goes again. Jelly spine. Blatantly rigged, says nothing. Buttigieg got up there and he declared victory. Why didn't Bernie Sanders declare victory, knowing that he's the most popular candidate? No, we're better than that. We will still. Just as long as the billionaires are paying the wages of the people who are fucking me over, I'm not going to do anything. No, just give me a break. Grow a fucking spine or fuck off. That's what he should do. He should endorse, I don't know, Yang or Tulsi, just somebody who's not, someone who's got a spine and isn't going to bow down at the DNC, which he obviously will every time. He could have run with Jill Stein last time, didn't, turned it down. He had the momentum, he could have taken out Hillary Clinton and possibly Trump last time. He would not take out Trump alone this time because, well, put it this way, it's going to be a miracle of marketing to make him overtake Trump, because the amount of people, all they have to do is start mentioning the C word, the communism, and seeding it into people on the left and middle and right will not vote for him, right? People disillusioned with Trump won't vote for him. They start playing those games. The gay guy is never going to win. End of story. Just will not happen. Don't be stupid. It's nothing to do with being homophobic. It's just have a fucking brain. He cannot win, right? It's hard enough for a woman to win, but a trans or a gay person, just wake the fuck up. It's never going to happen. Don't be stupid. You're setting yourself up for failure if you're trying to virtue signal and say why not, as someone said in one of my comments this morning. Why not? The obvious. That's why not. The average person, left, right, center, male, female, black, white, and gay themselves. You know what I mean? That's what I said to this woman. I said, take your most logically minded, your 3 most logically minded gay friends, which you probably don't have since you're a virtue signaling liar, because they always act like they've got a very mixed, diverse life, and they actually don't. They just talk about diversity. They don't actually live it. And ask those people, if you can find any, what they think, and they'll probably have the same opinion. He'll never win. We know what we go through when we go into a bar, for example. They'll say we know the sentiment we have on any of all of 50 states when we walk down the street hand in hand. So give me a break. You cannot be openly gay and win. It will not happen. So that's one thing. Bernie Sanders, again, he didn't back up Tulsi Gabbard. She backed up him years ago, and she denounced the DNC for committing fraud. She said it straight out. She's got cojones, right? It's amazing that well, she went to war as well. So here you've got the similar thing to Trump. He's actually doing quite well compared to any of the neocons they were trying to force upon people, and people are happy with him. So now Trump is going to be more popular than ever. He comes from a position of strength, and look at the amount of people that have been elected twice, Obama and Bush and others in the past, I think. So Sanders has not got the shoe in that he would have had if Hillary Clinton hadn't cheated and taken his place as the candidate in 2016, right? So you got to look at all these things. You got to say, why are the DNC doing this? Because the people that pay them to exist, the primary donors that they have, are the military-industrial complex. There'll be others as well, like the banks, who do not want Bernie Sanders in that position to take away their rigged game, right? When I say rigged game, the S&P 500, for example, look at most of the wealth in the S&P 500 is not spread across those 500 companies. It's spread across the FANG stocks at the top. What is it? Six companies in there: Facebook, Netflix, blah blah blah. So we can see that the wealth disparity is even showing up in the top end of the corporate spectrum, right? The whole game is rigged. So you're allowed to become, like Jeff Bezos, a multi-billionaire on the reason why. So Jeff Bezos and let's say the other guy from Facebook, I can't remember his bloody name now. You're permitted to become a billionaire. Why? Because the system, the government are not cool enough to create systems that people want to go on. So people want to use Amazon, people want to use eBay, people want to use Facebook. But if the government did have those systems, it would be against the Constitution. It would be, for them to actually do some of the things they do when it comes to censorship of data, affecting freedom of speech, for example. So you have to have a company doing these things to break the Constitution and get away with it. So they end up becoming corporations that are government puppets, or it's the other way around too. The corporations own them. So it's a holy union. It's effectively a synergistic union where they feed off each other as counterparty parasites and collective parasites that feed off the tax slaves, which I am no longer. Well, unless you count sales tax that I pay. Other than that, I'm not a tax slave. So yeah, that's basically, you can argue with me if you want, but just at least put your points. Don't say you're wrong or this or that. Just don't be a tard when you give your opinion. Be a rational human being and actually give some opinion based on fact. And I'll be happy to steer you right, because you'll most likely be wrong. But yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. The two-party system in America is rigged. It's no different than the one-party system that so many countries have. It is effectively the Republican Party, owned by the corporate cabal of banks and other corporations, military, industrial, and everything else. All right, I'm going to leave it at that. Bye.